Alright, so I'm going to show you guys just a quick extra sort of tutorial about basic things. Remember that I've posted a lot of things on Canvas, and you can also go to the links that I posted. That some are PDF files that you can use to help you see how to do some things. Some are video tutorials. Some are YouTube videos. There's lots of places you can find all of this information, including in the textbooks. But so this is just a quick view. So I'm just going to start with the cat, and what I wanted to show you here is some things about some basics about looping. Um, so one of the things that talked about at the beginning the other day is, I'm going to take this apart a little bit, is, a lot of times we often start with this. One of the things you might want to do, especially when you're doing a story or doing a game, a lot of times you want your sprite to be at a certain location when somebody starts the file. So if I don't have this, um, and I tell, for example, let's say I put this in here, and for right now, I'm going to take all of this out just so I can show you. So the looping is something in a program that allows you to put a loop that basically makes you be able to do something multiple times without having to actually put that thing in there multiple times. So let's say I wanted to move 10 steps. So instead of having to say move 10 steps, move 10 steps, move 10 steps, move 10 steps, and keep piling this on like this, etc. What I can do is I can go to the control menu and I can use what's called a loop. One of the loops is a repeat, so I'm just going to repeat this 5 times. So one thing I want to show you is if I do that, that repeated 5 times. If I do that again, it repeated 5 times. And it kind of looks like it's going across the stage, right? Well, one of the things that will happen is if I keep doing that, every time someone comes to start my program and they do this and it says move 10 steps, that character, the sprite here, in this case it's a cat, it keeps trying to move 10 steps. And so you can see it's over here. You could try to pull it back like that, but the problem is when someone's starting your project or your assignment or your Scratch project, they're not trying to build it like you are here. So they're just going to click this green thing and go on. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to show you, I think I mentioned it the other day, is you can use one of these go-to. This isn't the only way to do it, but this is one way to do it. So this way, every time somebody new comes and starts your project and does that, the cat will always, in this case the sprite, whatever, will always start here first. Then it will repeat the moving 10 steps. And see, that doesn't look looks kind of weird there because it just does it and then it goes right back to there. So then you start to, um, move, look at these variables. In this case, they're really just numerical variables, but we can change inside this little space there. You can put in different numbers. So maybe now we say, well, let me do that and see what happens. So that doesn't, 2 steps is very small on this stage here. So that doesn't show much there, but you can play around with that about how you want to do that, whatever you want your sprite to do. Okay, the other thing is, let's say, well, let me move this here. Okay, so let's say I wanted my character or my sprite to look like it's doing different things. Remember that we can't make this cat like turn the other way in general. If you go to this down here, this little information button, this comes up. This rotation style, if we want to make it turn, usually you want to leave it in this rotation style. You can try, this is kind of like a linear, and this is a point rotation. Depending on what you want to do, you might change to one of these. For right now, I would say we're just going to leave it there. You can play around with that and see what it does to your character when you do things like glide or move along, a certain amount of steps or whatever, or use the turning. But one thing I wanted to show you that we did not talk about is one way to get the the sprite to look like it's turning, for example. So this is costume 1. That's the first one that was there. Costume 2 was already there, and then I just duplicated costume 2. So let me go back and do that again. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate, just right click. Oops, sorry about that. Duplicate costume 2, but now if you come up here on the right hand side, you can turn costume 2 to the other direction. And see, I turned it there. So now this is this costume here. So in this case, it's still one sprite, but it has multiple costumes. What that allows you to do is think about if I click back and forth from here to here to here to here to here. You see how it looks like he's kind of turning back and forth. Obviously, we don't want to do that. We want to make the program do that, so we can tell it to switch from this costume to this costume. So I'm going to put that back in. I'm going to go back to my script. So one of the things I might want to do, and this is what I had over here, I'm going to put it in my repeat loop and see what happens. I'm going to switch it to costume 2, and then I'm going to switch it. Let me make sure it's called costume 3. So I want to switch it to costume 3. I deleted that other one. So I don't know what this is going to look like. I'm just going to try it and see what happens. So, okay, so see how it's kind of almost flipping back and forth. So that might, in that case, if I didn't want it to have that effect, I might either change the wait time, maybe to 2 seconds, or I might change the steps. You can play around with this and see what happens. And that's kind of what you have to do, depending on what you want it to look like it's doing. So maybe I want to take the move out altogether if that's not what I want it to look like it's doing. So this is where you have to play around, and that's the whole idea about it, is do I want this to happen within the repeat? A loop means everything within that loop gets repeated. And so now it's kind of flipping back and forth, so that move didn't make too much of a difference. 5 steps, remember, is very small here. So if you wanted it to look like it was moving further, for whatever reason, depending on what you're trying to do, maybe you want to make it 20 and see what happens. And so it kind of looks like it's going and flipping itself, you know. So anyway, those are a couple things you could look at. Repeat and what's in the loop gets repeated. If you want to take something out of the loop, maybe you want it to repeat and then you want it to switch here. So now I go back and say, okay, it went back to the original. And so now it's not switching. You see it's just moving. Maybe it kind of almost looks like it's jogging along. And then it switches. So see the difference is the switch is outside of this loop now. The other thing is, again, if you're doing a story, when people click on this, maybe you want them to all start from the beginning. So you might put this up here and say, I always wanted to start from costume 1. And so you make sure that it starts, because you may want to switch sprites, not just costumes. So maybe I want the cat to turn around and then turn into a dog or something. Then I'm going to switch to another sprite here instead of a costume. Or if you can't, I don't know if you can say switch sprite, you would have to have the dog down here as one of your sprites, and then over in here you start a new, when you click on the dog, you would have it will have its own programming here, its own sequence of steps for the dog. And so that's how you start learning to go back and forth from that. One more thing to say is if you put a forever loop in there, you got to be careful with the forever loops, because let's say I take that out, I take repeat and I put the forever in here, if I can get it. The cool thing about this is you can just drag a whole block of stuff. Okay, so think about what's going to happen there. See that this won't click on there? See, it won't let you put this underneath because there's no little kind of hump there, because forever loop means it's going to keep doing that forever. So there might be a reason why you want one character to be doing this forever, while maybe another character is doing something else. So in this case, you know, it's just going to keep doing this, and so it's going to go off the stage eventually because it's moving 20 steps. And so again, that's why maybe you want that to happen. Maybe one of the games I said called a chasing game. Maybe you want the dog to be chasing the cat. And so see here, the cat is going off the stage. It's moving 20 steps, and there it goes. It keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going. Um, and that's again why I put this in here to go to, because otherwise, let's say your game stopped, your chasing game. When someone comes back, the next player, and clicks on here, if you don't have this here, your sprite is going to start from where it is. I want it to start back here. So when I click this again, see it goes back and starts. So that's just a couple brief things to look at how you can use some basic looping. We'll talk more about these other loops a little later. You may have already gone on and seen more of that. A lot of this is very self-directed. You can go, and look at as many resources as you want. This is just a quick overview.